We have implemented all the catalog service, auto service, notification service, and then API gateway. So now we are going to start building our BookStore web application. So before starting the development of this module, let us first understand various types of web applications that people are building. So traditionally in the old days, it was like a traditional server rendered applications. In the context of Java, it used to be like servlets and JSP based application where you send a request from browser and then the server process the request and then send back the HTML response. And sometimes, most of the times, it is a full page refresh. If you have a form and you filled all the details in the form and then you submit the entire form, and then it will be processed by the server and then send a complete different page back to the browser. So that is how it used to be, exchanging the HTML. And then later, single page applications concepts came in where all these frameworks like React, Angular, Vue.js, all these frameworks follow this particular style. The whole process is initially when you send a request to the server, it is going to return host page, which is an index, usually it is an index.html or something like that, and that only loads the initial JS bundle, and then everything that happens on this page is going to happen through API calls. For example, when you want to load a set of products from the backend, from your JS, you are going to make an API call and then server is going to return JSON response. And then user performs some action like clicking on add to cart button, anything, user interactions and everything happens through API calls only. Not only that, page transitions also. Let us say you want to show a different page like a cart page or product page. So when user click on a link or a button, those actions are also handled through JavaScript and then use typically some router libraries and then show a different page. So all this process happens on the client side itself. So the advantages are like you don't refetch all the page data every time again. Initially you only get once the HTML layout and everything, and then only the data changes through API calls. So the data transmission between the client browser and server is minimal. But these single page applications come up with its own challenges, like implementing SEO is a little bit difficult, and sometimes when people are viewing your web application from low power devices like mobiles and all, maybe heavy processing is happening on the client side, so it may not be as performant as server side rendering. So that is the reason in the recent times people are slowly preferring again server rendered technologies like using Next.js or something like that. Okay, but before people going from this model to this model, there is another concept called multi-page applications. So here, initially, let's say you are requesting the home page of a website. So first it sends a request and then server returns the page response as HTML. But then onwards, everything that happens, user perform any actions that are going to perform based on the API calls and then through AJAX requests. So here, when a user clicks on a button or something like that, you trigger a AJAX call and then perform the necessary actions here. And then let's say user want to view a completely different page. Again, maybe user click on a link or something like that, and you go and make a second page request which returns the completely different HTML page, and you render that. And again, in this second page, if there are any actions, those will be performed through AJAX actions. So like that, there can be multi-page applications. Though it is not as popular as single page applications, but in my view, this is a really interesting approach to follow, because when you try to build single page applications, though it looks very attractive in the recent times, it brings all the complexity of building single page applications with all the Node.js ecosystem and NPM and everything. But if we can still build applications with Ajaxified interactivity using server-side rendering technologies like Thymeleaf and technologies like Alpine.js or HTMX, without bringing in all the Node.js things into our applications. As I mentioned in the initial video, the goal of this course is to teach you how to build microservices using Spring Boot. The core focus of this entire course is on the backend, building the microservices and everything. But for the completeness, I'm going to build the UI also, the web application. And the reason I want to go with this approach is, while building this, I want to use Thymeleaf, and I want to demonstrate some techniques like how you can make calls to other services like API gateway, and by using declarative HTTP interfaces. So I want to demonstrate some more features of Spring Boot. So that is the reason I am not using any single page application. Instead, I am going to build our web application using Thymeleaf. And for the API calls, I'm going to use Alpine.js, and we are going to build our application as a multi-page application. I have created the BookStore web application module from Spring Initializer here. I provided the project metadata, and then I chose Spring Web and Thymeleaf for Thymeleaf templates. And then I'm using Actuator and DevTools and configuration processor for development purpose. And then I'm using validation. So we don't have anything for backend databases, things like that, because we are going to call backend APIs for all the backend functionality. So these are all the starters we need for now. And I have generated the application using this configuration, and I have copied the generated code into our repository here. So here we have BookStore WebApp, which contains the starters that we selected: web, validation, Thymeleaf, and Actuator. And also I have configured our usual stuff like Spotless maven plugin and Docker configuration here, and Git commit ID plugin and Spotless plugin, and customized for creating the Docker image. So you know this. So our initial project is ready, and if we take a look at our application name here, even though it is implicit, let us make it explicit. Here we are using server port 8080. Okay, so we have our initial application in place, and now if we take a look at what are all the services running in our Docker, we have all the backend services like order service, catalog service, and databases, rabbitmq, and API gateway are already running on our Docker. So during the development, we are going to start only a BookStore application, and then we are going to talk to the API gateway, so that you can simply keep changing the code and then restart instead of running building the Docker image and then again deploying. Okay. First, let us create a controller to render the home page which displays the products. So here under WebApp, I am going to create in web package controllers, I am going to create product controller. Okay, so this is going to be a controller, not REST controller, because we are going to render the Thymeleaf templates, not returning the JSON response. So here first I'm going to create a get mapping, and so here initially when we are asked for the root page, I would like to redirect it to the products page. So I am going to mark it as like this. So what this will do, when I access localhost 8080, it is going to handle by this, and it is going to redirect me to /products page. So I don't need it to be public. And now again I am going to create another controller that renders products. So here the path is /products. Okay, so here I would like to render the template products.html. So by default, when you are using Thymeleaf, it is going to expect you to have this template under src main resources templates folder. So let us go ahead and create a Thymeleaf template products.html here. So here I am going to put this basic Thymeleaf template. So right now we are not using any Thymeleaf directives, but this is the basic template you can render. So first let us run our application and then try to see whether we can render this or not. So the application is started. Now I go to localhost 8080. So you can see that is redirected to /products page and it is rendered this template here. So it is now working in its initial form. Now what we are going to do, we are going to add more features, like we are going to use Bootstrap for styling. So what we can do, we can go to get Bootstrap page, and here if you take a look at read the docs, so here you can see this is the initial page where you can copy some of the text here under head element, and let us copy the script for Bootstrap.js. So before body, I'm going to add this. So this way you can include Bootstrap styling and JS support here. And just to ensure our Bootstrap is loaded correctly, let us display a simple button here. Click and then let us apply class btn primary. So if this Bootstrap styling is loaded properly, this should display in a blue color. So let's restart this and go ahead and refresh it. So it is rendering in blue color. So that means Bootstrap is loading correctly. This is fine. This is one way you can include your scripts like this, which is directly loading from CDNs. But if you do not have internet connection, it is not going to work. So I would prefer, again, it depends on your production deployment consideration. In production, most likely you have an internet connection working, and using CDN might actually be better for loading the scripts in a more performant way. But for our development purpose, I am going to use a library called WebJars. So here there is a WebJars library which packages all these front-end related CSS or JavaScript kind of libraries as Java jar files, and we can include them and we can reference them in our Thymeleaf templates. So we are going to use WebJar support instead of directly including CDN links. So let us go ahead and add Bootstrap WebJar here in our form.xml. So I'm going to add. So this is the dependency for loading Bootstrap. The latest version is 5.3.3. So this is how we can load it. So once we load that, how we can include the Bootstrap which is there inside that jar file. Let me replace this entire file here. So this is how I can reference the here you can see this is how I am including the Bootstrap CSS file. So if you take a look at our dependencies here, you can see under external jars, if you go to all the way down, you can see WebJars Bootstrap directory, Bootstrap jar here, inside which you can see under meta-inf there is resources, under which there is WebJar Bootstrap 5.3.3, and then there is JS and CSS folders. So in servlet specification, you can serve the static resources or even JSPs and everything under meta-inf resources folder. So that is the technology that we are leveraging here. So we are able to directly reference this path under meta-inf under resources. So we are giving WebJars, Bootstrap 5.3.3, CSS and Bootstrap.css. Similarly, we are loading Bootstrap bundle.js also. So now let us go ahead and restart and see whether it is still working fine or not. Okay, now there is no button because I have replaced this entire thing. Now if I again put it back, click and class btn primary. So if I restart now, it should pick up this. So it is loading fine. So this way we can load any JavaScript libraries or anything like that. If they are available as WebJars, we can use that. So in the similar way, I am going to use a few other libraries as well. Like we are going to use jQuery for making call to backend APIs, and FontAwesome for including some icons, and Alpine.js to actually load the data and render the UI. So I'm going to add all those dependencies as well in our pom.xml. So here we have jQuery, FontAwesome, and Alpine.js added as a WebJars. Okay. Let me restart. So I'm going to update the template here to include all those. So I'm going to replace the entire thing. So here what I did, just like the way we have included a Bootstrap, I also included FontAwesome CSS here. There is no file yet. We have to create this one, and in the JavaScript section I am loading jQuery first and then Bootstrap, and finally I am loading this Alpine.js. So let us go ahead and create this file under our static directory. So we are going to use this styling for our menu bar, top nav bar here. So here we are adding some padding top. We'll talk about it when we are building top navigation. So right now this is how we can create a simple Thymeleaf page. But going forward we will have different pages, and we are going to have top nav bar, but we don't want to keep copy pasting the same nav bar or any other common elements for every page. So this is where we want to use some kind of a layout mechanism. So Thymeleaf supports a layout dialect which you can use and create the layout files and include that as a layout in other pages. So let us go ahead and add the dependency here, Thymeleaf layout dialect. So this is going to give us Thymeleaf layout support. So once we have that, let us go ahead and create a layout file under templates. Layout.html. So our layout.html is going to contain a few placeholders here. Let us take a look at. So what we are doing, in addition to right now we don't have security in place, so here I am including this layout support here, and I am using I'm including all these Bootstrap and CSS, FontAwesome CSS, and our own custom CSS, and in the main body I am including a top nav bar here to display the navigation bar and the links. So right now we have cart link and then orders link, and we have the main part where I have given the ID app and a class container. So this is, again we are saying layout fragment equals to content. So this is where the remaining pages are going to include their own page specific content. So the rest of the content is going to be common for all the pages which are going to use this layout. Okay, and again we are including all these scripts like jQuery, Bootstrap, and Alpine.js. And one more thing here, we have included layout : fragments, fragment page scripts. So in any specific page, if you want to include additional JavaScript files, you can include this here. I mean in whichever page you are going to use. So right now we put it as a empty placeholder here. We'll get to know how we are going to use this feature. Okay, so basically this is the common layout we have here, and each page specific content is going to come here. Okay, so now let us refactor our products.html file to use the layout. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are going to change this to this. So here we are saying layout decorate equals to layout. So we are referencing the layout HTML page, so that we don't need to again include all those CSS files, JS files in every page. So here I am specifying this is the layout I am going to use, and only I need to include the dynamic fragments here. So here this is one fragment, layout fragment content, and also there is another. If I don't want to include any one of the specific segment, I can ignore that. But here in products.html, I am currently including layout fragment content equals to display products here. So it is going to render everything in layout.html, but in this it is going to display this content. Okay, so now let us restart and then see whether it is working or not. Okay, the application started. Now I can see the top navigation bar is displayed, and the products content is being displayed. So it is rendering the page with the layout support. So that is working fine. So here in our layout page, we are including some image. Maybe we don't need this. Let us remove this, and so now we have a basic template ready. Now we are going to see how we can use Alpine.js to make an API call to API gateway and then fetch the product details and then render them. Okay, let's take a quick look at what is Alpine.js and how we can use them. So simply you can include this Alpine.js as a script, and then this is the scope of this X data. So here you can initialize with some data and you can reference that in your markup. So here if you take a look at this span, here there are some custom attributes provided by Alpine.js like X show, and equals to open means if it is open is false, it is not going to show up. If it is true, it's going to show up. So like this, there are some attributes provided by Alpine.js, and based on the data you can provide this dynamic behavior. So again here it is providing this click handler where you are simply assigning open equals to true upon clicking on this button. So like that you can scope your markup, and then you can provide this dynamic data and then act upon that data based on various activities that you are going to perform on these various elements. So it is as simple as that. It just provides very few attributes only, like you can see only there are a handful of elements that you can use. And let us take a quick look at how we can use this Alpine.js in our application. So right now we have our application and we have already included Alpine.js in our layout file itself. So it is available for our application. So now let us go ahead and create a JS file here. I'm going to create a file called js/products.js. So in this file, let's imagine we are going to implement the logic related to the products page. So here what we can do, we can write a event listener here. Let's go ahead and take a look at in the documentation itself. So here this is one way. I mean here earlier we have seen this is one way to initialize the data, but obviously we are not going to have some static data. We want to load some dynamic data, right? So how we can load dynamic data? If you go ahead and see this globals Alpine data, here you can see this is another way to initialize the data for that specific page. So here we are adding a event listener Alpine:init, and we are providing a function here to execute, and within this we are giving this name drop down and again providing a function here. So here we are initializing open equals to false and then toggle creating a function to change the state of this open flag. And once we initialize this data, here in the markup we are calling this x data equals to dropdown. This dropdown is nothing but the name we are given here, Alpine.data, and this is the name of the function here. So when we add this, it is going to invoke this one and then initialize the data, and these functions are available for us to call here. So we are using this approach here in our products page. What we are going to do here, earlier in the layout file, we specified this layout page level scripts. So we want to include this products.js in our products page. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to include this, and then I'm going to include script ss equal to js/products.js. So here we are giving the name as init data. So we need to call it somewhere from here. So let us see how we can call that data. So within this fragment, let us say we are having a div that has x data equals to, we are calling that function init data, which is nothing but the function name here. Okay. So what happens now when you load the page? It is going to include this script here, and then we are it is going to call this init data to initialize this Alpine.js data function, and initially it is going to set count value to 0, and if you want to initialize any data, you can set it in this init function here. So as soon as this page is loaded, a count equal to initially 0, but init function gets executed and count value becomes 25. Now in our function here in our template, we can use that to render some values based on the data that we have initialized. Let's say we want to display there are some number of products. So here initially I put it as a 0 within this span, but I am using this x-text directive and specifying the variable name here, which is available in this scope. So I'm trying to print whatever the value assigned to here in this h1. Okay, so let us run this and see what we are going to see in this page. Now if I go and redisplay it, here you can see there are 25 products. So we are going to follow the similar pattern where we have created a controller and then we are rendering a template, and within this template we are calling some init data function, and we are initializing whatever is required to render that page. Right now there are no additional functions here, but if there are any additional functions, for example here we may render all the products information and provide add to cart button, and when we click on it, maybe we will write a function here to handle that event. So like, but what about if we want to pass some initial data to it? For now, let us say we want to load the products, right? But we also want to implement some pagination also. For that, our page controller would be like, it is going to receive a request parameter called name equals to page, and default value is 1. Okay, int page number. Okay, I want to so I want to include this page number so that I will load that specific page products here. So how can I do that? So here we can pass the model. So if you have used Thymeleaf, you might be familiar with this. If you want to pass any data from your controller to your view template, you can set them as model attributes. So here I am going to set add attribute and specify page number equals page number, this page number value. Okay, so now how I can use this one? Okay, so if you go to template, here you can specify that value here, like you can include dollar page number. So it is going to render this with the dynamic value that we put in the model, and this is going to be passed as a input parameter to init data function in this one. So here you can specify page number, and let us say we are going to maintain this page number, and we are going to just print here console.log page number, this dot page number. We just want to load for this specific page of products. So now if we go ahead and change it here, so let me update this as load page 0 or whatever products. Okay, now let me restart this. So basically what we are doing, we are capturing if there are any request parameters or anything like that, and we are putting them as a model attributes, which we can render in Thymeleaf like this, and we are rendering it as an input parameter to this init data function itself. So that is going to be passed as a input to the callback function. Okay, and this we can initialize it to some private variables or directly use it here. So you can do whatever makes sense for your business logic. So right now we are just initializing it to this local variable page number, and then in the init function we are calling, basically this is where we are going to make a backend API call to load the products. So now if we go ahead and reload this, now it is showing load page 1 products. So now if I pass this page equals to 3, it is going to page load page 3 products. Like that you can capture any dynamic values and then pass it to our Alpine.js loading function. I have added the logic to fetch the products information and then rendering in our products.html page. So instead of keep typing, I have just added all the logic that is required to display this products information. So I'll walk you through what this logic is going to do. So here again, we are going to take this page number from our controller as an attribute that is getting passed from here as we discussed. And then within this products.js file, we are initializing this local variable page number, and also we are initializing this products object which contains data with an empty array. And in the init function, we are calling this dot load products information, passing this page number. So if we are calling the default page, it is going to be 1. If it is page number equals to 2, it is going to contain 2. So we are calling this function here. So here we are directly making a call to our API gateway catalog /API /products, and page number equals to whatever the value we are passing. And once we receive the response, we can see what kind of response we are getting, and then we are assigning that to our products. So ideally this is going to contain, let us see what kind of response we are getting from this API call. So here data will contain all the products information. In addition to that, you will contain total elements, page number, total pages, all this pagination related information, and data is the one which contains the actual data. So we are assigning this response to our products variable. Now once we have these variables defined, now we are using that information to render this products information. So we have the pagination here. We will talk about it in a bit. But now here we are rendering 3 or 4 rows as columns, and then we are looping through x for is a Alpine.js directory here attribute, and x for the products.data. So this is the actual data that contains the products information, right? So we are looping over this data, and in each product information we are rendering as a product card. Okay, so here we are using :src, means we are using again Alpine.js reference here. We can assign dynamic value like this. So within this products, there is a property called image URL, and this is a shortcut way to specify x-src like that. and we are displaying the product image, and then as part of the card body we are displaying product name. So here we set some static name, but that value is going to be replaced by this X text, and we are referencing product.name. Similarly, we are displaying product price like this, and at the footer we are having a button called add to cart, and we are assigning this click handler add to product, which we have not yet implemented. So now with this, now let us take a look at this pagination. So here we have created a folder called fragments, and we have a pagination.html. So this contains the pagination rendering logic here. So this is the pagination one, and we are checking if products.total pages is more than 1, then only we are going to render this pagination bar, otherwise we are not going to render this. And this is nothing but bootstrap pagination markup here, and we are using this dynamic value. If pagination is at the first page, we are assigning disabled class for this one, because if the user is already on the first page, there is no need to enable this button, this hyperlink. So like that we are applying conditionally if it has a previous page or not, and then comparing and then assigning the URL like slash products slash page equals to, so the current page plus 1 or minus 1 based on the next page or previous page, we are rendering that one. And this class is to whether to enable that button or not. If you are already in the last page, there is no need to enable that, so we are disabling like this. So it is a simple pagination rendering here, and we are including that in our products.html page like this. So this is the root path. From templates, there is a fragments folder under which there is a file called pagination, in which we are referencing this fragment name pagination. So that is what we are specifying it here. With all this, now if we restart our application and try to render, it will pose a problem. Let us see what is the problem. So now when I try to render, it is giving me this error, access to XML HTTP request at 8989 products page from origin localhost 8080 has been blocked by CORS policy. The access allow origin header contains multiple values star comma HTTP localhost 8080, but only one is allowed. So this problem is occurring for two reasons. For one reason, one is we have already configured our API gateway to enable the CORS for this value star, but in addition to that, we also configured in our catalog service CORS configuration. Here, right? So due to this, it is adding one more endpoint like localhost 8080 and star, and only one value is allowed. So we can do in two ways. We can fix this problem. One is remove this configuration from catalog service. That is one approach. If you do that, you will not be able to make these calls from your Swagger documentation. Another approach is in your application.yaml file, you can configure one more property under cloud gateway default filters. So here you can specify a filter called dedupe response header, and you can specify all the headers that you want to deduplicate. So if there are multiple values, what you want to do, you can specify. So here you can specify all the headers, and then you can specify what action you want to take if there are multiple values. So there are some values, possible values like retain unique, retain first, like that. So I'm going to use retain first. So that means whatever the value that comes first is going to be retained. In our case, it is going to be star. So it should fix the problem. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to restart all the services, backend service here, and then retry this. Now let's go ahead and reload this page. Now we should be able to see the page with the images and products information here. So you can also see the pagination here. Now we only have 2 pages of data. Now you can see. So it is working fine. But currently the functionality of adding to cart is not yet implemented, but we are able to fetch the data and then render it. So again, I am going to quickly iterate through what we have done here. And so the flow starts at when you access products page from your application browser. It is going to redirect to these products, and here we are taking page as the default value 1, and if you pass anything specific, it is going to take that value and put it in the model and render this products page. In this products page, we are rendering this dollar of page number. It is going to render by Thymeleaf as whatever the value. Right now it is going to be 1, and this value is going to be passed to this Alpine.js init data function in our product.js. So now page number is going to be assigned to this local page number, and then products we are initializing with some empty data within this data array. And in the init function, we are calling this load products by passing this page number. And in the load products, we are directly making a call to API gateway, catalog/API/products, which is going to strip off this catalog prefix and then forward to actual catalog service and get the products information. And if you take a look at the response here, you can see product response contains all this has next, has previous, is first, all this product pagination information and the actual data. So in our page, we are returning 10 elements. Okay, so we are rendering all this information. We are assigned this products data to this variable products. And once we have these values, we can use that in our template to render the actual HTML markup. And here we are using X for, which is a Alpine.js custom attribute, and we are looping through products.data, and we are rendering each product information by specifying the image URL and title, product name, product price, and we are rendering this add to button. Okay, so also we have this pagination information. We are rendering this. So this is how we are rendering this products page. Next, we are going to implement add to cart button functionality, and how we are going to implement it. There are different ways in real applications. Most likely that data is going to be stored in, let's say, in database or somewhere in the server side. But to keep things simple, I'm going to store that information in the local storage of a browser. So let's see how we can implement that functionality. As I mentioned, we are going to store the current cart information, what are the products that we added, in our browser's local storage. I have created a cartstore.js file in our JS folder. So here it has a bunch of utility function to add a product to the cart, or to remove or update the quantity, like that. So let us quickly go through what it contains. So we are having a key based on which key we want to store this cart information, and here there is a function called getCart. What we are doing, from the local storage we are getting this based on this key value, and if it doesn't exist, we are going to create a new empty array with items as an empty array and total amount as 0, and we are stringifying that, and then we are putting that cart value as a item in this local storage with the same key, BookStore state key, which is nothing but BookStore state, and then returning that value as a response to getCart function. And then there is add product to cart function, which takes a product information, and then we are first we are trying to get cart which is going to determine if there is any cart already there in the local storage. If not existing, it is going to set 1 and then return that. So now that we have cart, we are going to find if there is any product that is already exist with the given same product code. So we are filtering out based on the product code, and if such an item already exists, we are going to simply increment the quantity. So we are taking the current quantity and doing +1. Otherwise, we are going to push the current object into items. So this is going to set this quantity as 1 and put the product as the value and push it to the cart items. And then again setting that by stringifying that value, setting it as the BookStore key in the local storage. But again, once we do that, we also call another function to update the cart item quantity. Right now, if you take a look at our UI here, initially we are rendering that as a 0. If you take a look at our layout file, initially we are showing it as 0. But we gave this ID cart item count. So in our function, when we are calling this update cart item, what we are doing, first we are taking that cart value and initializing with count as 0 and then looping through all the items within this cart and then calculating the total count value, and using jQuery we are setting the text as this parenthesis and count. So whenever we are adding a product, or in fact we are updating any product quantity and all, we are calling this function, reusable function, which is going to recalculate how many products are there and then accordingly update that text, how many count is there. So similarly, we have update product quantity. Again, we are going to send the code, product code, and how much quantity we want to buy. So this is going to be used in the upcoming screen where we are going to show cart with all the products. There you can directly update any quantity of any product that you are already added to the cart. So that's where we are going to use it. Similarly, you can delete a cart and then by simply removing that from local storage. So these are all various utility functions in order to add, remove, delete all the items from the cart. Now, this is the common functionality for all the pages. So what we are doing in the layout.html page, we are adding that directly, not inside the fragment page scripts above that. So it is commonly available for all the pages. Once we add this, and within our products.js file, we have added a function add to cart, which is taking the product information. And we are calling this add product to cart, which is available in cart store. So now if you take a look at one more time, this is going to include in all the pages, and in that there are top level functions available, and we are calling one of that function from our Alpine.js by passing this product information. Okay, so now let us see how we are calling this add to cart. In our products screen, here at the footer, card footer, we have a button with @click. This is a shortcut for click handler, and we are calling this add to cart, and we are passing this direct entire product information. Okay, so like that we have implemented this add to cart functionality. Now let me restart this, and let me restart this as well. So initially it doesn't have any products. Now if you take a look at local storage, localhost 8080, there is no data also. Now first let us click on add to cart for this. So immediately you can see here BookStore state, it added this items and then added this current product to the cart, and this also got updated. Now if you add another product, it is going to contain one more product information. Here you can see 2 products, but if you add one more product existing type, it is going to simply increment the counter quantity. So here we have 2. So like that we are simply adding that and then showing this in the cart header here, how many products that you have added. Let me add one more and it will change to cart 4. So like that you can simply add the products to the cart. Next, let us implement the screen of showing the cart information and being able to place an order. So here, when user click on this link, it is going to take us to the /cart page. So let us start with implementing the controller to handle that. So here I have created another controller next to the product controller. I have created order controller, and it is going to take this get mapping of /cart and trying to simply render this cart page. So again, that cart page is there in the templates, and here if we take a look at cart, it is going to follow in the similar fashion here, where we have this init data. We don't need to pass anything here, but what is going to happen in the init data, let us here if you take a look at it, at the end we are including this cart.js file. So this is specific to this cart page. So I have created a cart.js file here, and again similarly we are loading this init data function to initialize the data, and initially we are going to set this cart to an object containing empty items and total amount as 0 and order form, and I am initializing with some sample data so that I don't have to type this, but usually this is going to be all the empty values here. And in the init function, so we are first calling this update cart item count, because whenever user clicks on this one, we need to still show how many items are there. So we are calling this function, which is going to read from the local storage and calculate the count of items and then display it there. Next, we are calling this load cart. So load cart is another function here, which is going to simply call get cart, and this get cart function is coming from cart store. Okay, so now what else we are doing, and initially we are also calling this get cart total. Again, this is another utility function in the cart store to simply calculate the total amount from each of the items and then summing it up. Okay, so these are all the utility functions here. And we have load cart is just loading that cart, and then here we have update item quantity, where we can take the code and then specify a different quantity. So we are going to call this update product quantity, and this one, it is going to update product quantity. Again, we take the code, product code and quantity. If the quantity is less than 1, that means we are trying to remove it. So we are going to filter out which is not equals to the code and assign the remaining items to cart items. Otherwise, we are going to update with the new quantity value. Okay, so that is that, and we are going to reload if we are updating the quantity, and then we are going to reload it and then recalculate the total items. And remove cart is once the order is placed, we want to just delete the cart. And create order is where we are going to take the order form details, where we have all this information, and then we are going to populate the items values also. And finally, we are going to pass that as a payload to this API endpoint, order service API endpoint. We are posting this and then creating a new order here. And if it is successful, we are removing the cart, and then if there is any error, we are displaying order creation failed. Once we successfully place the order, we are supposed to redirect it to display the placed order details. So right now we have not yet implemented, so I am simply showing this alert as order placed successfully. So it looks like there are many things going on, but basically we are simply updating the item cart and then loading as it is required. So let us go ahead and add some products. So I'm going to add some products and then click on it. So now it is displaying this page, and all this information is pre-populated because I have set some sample data. Now if you want, you can update it to a different value. Okay, so once you update it, and then here these are the ways you can update the quantity. For example, I want to change the quantity to 2. So now it automatically calculates this subtotal and then display it total amount also. So how it is happening, when I change this quantity, it is calling this update item quantity. Now here if you go to, let me close some of these. So in the cart page, when we are displaying products information, we are calling on the input. So we are basically displaying the current quantity and also registering change event listener here, update item quantity, and passing item code and the current value entered in the input box. And we are calling this update item quantity. And update item quantity is the function defined in this cart.js, which is going to again call some other functions to update the actual quantity and then set it in the local storage. So that is how it works. And now finally let us go ahead and place the order. So now order placed successfully. So now we are able to place the order. And also if you take a look at it, order is the cart is removed, because once we successfully place the order, here we are calling this remove cart, and remove cart is calling delete cart. Delete cart is a generic function in this cart store, and delete cart, what it is doing, we are simply removing this BookStore state here. Okay, so that's that. Now next, what we are going to do, once we successfully place the order, we want to redirect to the new order created order page, where we want to show details about that particular order. Okay, let's work on that. Currently, once the order is successfully placed, we are simply showing this alert as order placed successfully. But right now, let us comment this out and then redirect the browser to /orders/ whatever the order number that is we got from the response, so that we want to show complete details about that particular order. So here the assumption is we are going to get this order number as part of this create order response. Okay, so now in order to implement this, we need to handle this URL in our controller. So I have added that in our order controller, another get mapping which takes order/ this dynamic value, and we are populating that value here, and then we are simply setting that as an attribute and rendering this order details page. And here in order details, I have created a new template order_details.html, and again like the way we did for products page, we are passing this order number to the Alpine.js init function. So let us go ahead, and I have created order details.js also for this screen, and again I have this init data and then passing this in order number here, and I'm initializing it to order number and then setting all these to empty values for this order details. In the init function, again this is to update the current count, and then this is the actual call to this function to load the order information. We are passing this order number, and here we are making API call to order service through API gateway by specifying this order/order number. Once we receive the order details, we are setting it to order details. So we have all the order information in order details. So now we are using that information. So here we are simply placing your order is placed successfully, and then we are showing order number, order status, and we are also showing looping through all the items. We are showing all the quantity and subtotal and everything. Okay, so we are we are also displaying this customer information, okay, delivery information, all these values we are fetching it from model. Okay, so this is how we are using the information loaded from Alpine.js into our templates. So this is kind of a very similar to Vue.js. If you are using Vue.js, plain Vue.js, the functionality looks very similar. Okay, so now with this setup, let us go ahead and one more thing, like we need to include the page specific script here using page scripts fragment. Okay, now with this, let me restart. And let us go to page, reload this and add a couple of products and go to cart.js. Now let us update some quantity here and place order. So now order is placed successfully, and then we are taken to 8080/orders/ this order number, and we are able to see the order status as new and the quantity and everything, and also customer details and the delivery address. So in the background, I think by now it should be changed to delivery order status to delivered. So let us reload. Now the status is displayed as delivered. So this is the URL that you want to display more details about a particular order. Okay, so now this is also working fine. Now next, what we are going to implement, we want to display all the orders information. When we click on orders, we want to show all the list of orders that is placed by the current logged in user, but right now there is no login information. In the backend also there is no login functionality, and statically we are going to fetch all the data anyway. So let us implement this screen. In our layout.html file, in the top navbar, there is a link called orders. Here the link is going to /orders. The URL is going to be /orders. So first let us go ahead and implement the handler for get mapping /orders, and we are going to simply render this template orders. So here in the orders template, again we are doing the same thing, first trying to initialize the data from Alpine.js by calling this init data. So where is that? Again we have included this orders.js file and included that. So now let us take a look at this orders.js. Again same, we are initializing the data here. Initially we set orders to a empty array, and then we are loading the orders and also updating the item count in the cart. So here in the load orders, we are making the calls to fetch all the orders, and we are getting all the orders information and then assigning to this array. So once we have loaded this orders information in our orders.html, we are looping through all the orders, and then we are linking this as a hyperlink to view more details, but currently showing this order number and also order status. We are just showing these two and included this order.js file. So now let me restart, and when we go to BookStore, and now if we click orders, we can see all the orders details with just order number and status only. Now if you click on any of this link, you can see more details about that particular order. So simply we can do like this. So this is the whole functionality without authentication, but there are few things that we have not implemented properly. For example, in each of the JS files, while making backend API calls, we are directly hard-coded these values, localhost 8989 and orders. So we have hard-coded this one. So one thing we could do is make it as a configurable application property in from the backend, and while rendering this page, we can load it and then use that value instead of hard coding like this. So first let us try that one. As we don't want to hard code this API gateway URL for in most of the JS files, we want to centralize it in one place and then use it. So what we have done, we have created a application properties class with the API gateway URL, and prefix is BookStore, and we have configured that value in our application properties file. So here we have bookstore.api gateway URL configured to this whatever value, so that when we are running the application entirely in Docker containers, we can provide Docker container host name here instead of the local host or anything like that. So now how do we get this property value into our JavaScript? So one approach that Thymeleaf provides is, if we take a look at our layout.html file, here you can get the values from the environment variables by using this expression. So it is going to inline the value of this expression into this Thymeleaf template. So here API gateway URL value is going to be whatever the value that we have set for this property. Okay, so once we have initialized API gateway URL as a, if you notice here, it is included as a top level variable in the page. So any script that is going to be included afterwards can use this variable. So we are going to use that and replace everywhere. First let us start with this cart, and here I'm going to use like this. Okay, so that is that, and in order details again we are going to include this plus. Okay, next in the orders again we are going to use that variable, and like this. In the products also we can use this like this. Okay, now let us go ahead and restart our application and see how it actually works. Now let us refresh, and if you take a look at generated HTML view page source, here at the end you can see it is replaced with the value. It is though escaped, but the value is localhost 8989. Okay, so now when we click on add to cart and then go to cart page, place order, it is working fine. And you can also go to orders, and so it is using this configured value just fine. Okay, so this is working fine. But again, in the most of the pages in this application, it is calling only one API endpoint and then rendering the page. Let us say what happens in our products page. We want to display products by first fetching the products information from catalog service or assume product service, and then you may also have another service like promotions or something like that, recommendations or something like that, and you may want to show some recommendations also. Then again you may want to include it here to make another call. But instead of making these calls here, we may take a design choice where you want to make a call to one API. Maybe in the product controller you want to make a call to one API endpoint, and here you make those external calls, multiple calls, one to catalog service, another to promotion service, and then aggregate all that data and then send it back. Then instead of directly making the calls to catalog service, you only make the call to one of your local API endpoint, and from there you can talk to other services, be it catalog service and all. So we are going to see how we can implement that behavior. So why we are doing that? The whole purpose of doing that is to demonstrate how we can use declarative HTTP clients to make calls to catalog service or order service and communicate without writing REST client based logic. Okay, let's go ahead and see how we can implement that. We have talked about the new REST client support added in Spring Framework 6, REST client and HTTP interface as well, but we have used REST client while communicating from order service to catalog service. This is one approach. Another approach is HTTP interface. So if you are familiar with Fian clients, it is kind of a similar. You create an interface and then you use various get exchange, post exchange kind of a methods on these method definitions, and you configure to which service it needs to talk to, and Spring is going to generate the proxy and provide the implementation to actually make the call and then return the response. We don't have to actually write the logic to do all that. We just need to create the interface and then write this method call definitions here. So we are going to try this option here because we just want to know how we can follow this approach as well. If you remember in our order service, if you take a look at our order service, we have used in our clients, we have used catalog service, and here we have used REST client, and then we are making call to get URI so on so we are implementing it like this. But now we are going to see how we can use that HTTP declarative HTTP interface for talking to other services. So let us go to our BookStore web app, and I have already prepared that code. Here in our WebApp package, I have created a clients package, and let us take a look at our catalog. And here we have this product record which contains all this information, and we have page results also. This, if you remember, this is nothing but the page result, the response we are going to get from API/products API endpoint. And here we have catalog service client, which is simply an interface, and then we are using this at get exchange, at get exchange, post exchange. If you have any post methods like that, you can use methods like this, and we don't need to actually implement this. We can configure our Spring in such a way that it is going to generate the dynamic proxies for it. Okay, so here the first one is to fetch all the products from our API gateway. So here we are excluding the base URL of our API gateway, and then we are adding rest of the URL segment. So here for getting one product, we are adding this API endpoint. So if we go to clients config, this is a Spring configuration class here, and then we injected this application properties, and this is how we need to configure our catalog service client. So here we are creating a new REST client instance by taking the base URL from our properties, and then we are creating a HTTP service proxy factory, and we are specifying this REST client, and then we are calling create client and passing this interface. So it is going to dynamically generate the proxy and then return it. So similarly, we also have all the models, and then we have this order service client, which has all these methods for creating an order, get order, and get orders. So all this we can just define like this: post exchange, get exchange. And if you are familiar with this OpenFin or something like that, it is very similar. So we just don't need to again use an external library like OpenFin or something like that, because that functionality is right now available in Spring Framework 6 itself. So we have configured both catalog service client and order service client. Now what we can do, we can inject these clients into our, let's say, product controller. So earlier we do not have this injection here. Now we have injected product in the product controller. We have injected catalog service, and we have added a couple of one new endpoint. And here we are saying get mapping /API/products. And here we are also adding this at response body, because this is a normal controller and we are trying to return JSON here. So we added this at response body, and from here we are again taking this same page number, and then we are trying to get products information from catalog service. Okay, so earlier what we did, we directly called from our templates here. If you go to JS, from products, we directly called the API gateway from JS itself. But now with this API endpoint created, we can simply call our local BookStore REST API endpoint, and which internally going to talk to API gateway. So here simply we can take away this and also this. So this API now is going to call in the product controller this API endpoint, not the API gateway directly. From here we are going to make a call to API gateway. Okay, this is going to be talking to API gateway base URL /catalog/API/products, like that. Okay, and again, as I said, in this case it doesn't make much sense or benefit, because we are making simple one API call. Why can't we directly make that call from here itself? But as I said, just imagine if you are in a scenario where you need to make multiple calls and then get the aggregated data in order to render a page. In that case, maybe you can provide a local API endpoint, and here you make multiple calls and then aggregate that information and then give it the response. But the actual reason why I'm doing this is to demonstrate how we can from one service if you want to make a call to another service using HTTP declarative interfaces, this is how you can do it. Okay, you can simply create an interface and then configure it like this, and you will be able to consume the data from there. So right now we just updated in our products.js to make the local call to product controller to this API endpoint, and then we are going to get it. So let us restart and then verify this is going to actually work or not. Now let us go ahead and see whether it is working fine or not. I am reloading this and still I am able to see the products, so it is working fine. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for order controller as well. So here, if I go to order controller, I have made that change where I have injected this order service client, and so this is the API. Earlier we already have it, we simply render a cart, but here while creating a new order, instead of directly calling the API gateway, we have created a local API endpoint, and here we are taking that order and then we are calling this API, order service client API. And similarly, while fetching the while getting the order details, again we have a local method that first get from the order service and then provide the response. So similarly for all orders, we are first fetching from order service and then returning it. So now respectively we need to make changes in our other places as well. So here now we don't need to make it direct call to our API gateway. Instead you can make it to a local call. So this API/orders, this is for creating the order, right? So that is going to be handled by this API endpoint within the BookStore web app application itself. So now this is done, and if you go to order details, again you don't need this, and then you can remove this part as well. Okay, and also for orders you don't need to make call directly. Okay, and this is already done. So now let us restart and then verify. Okay, I think it started. Now let us see end to end. So now the home page with products is displayed properly, and we are able to add the items, and then we are able to place the order. And if you go to orders, we can see orders as well. So everything is working fine. So this might look a little bit confusing because we have gone through a lot of code snippet and all, but as I said, it is fairly simple doing the same process for different screens. So we have a layout file where we are including all the common scripts like jQuery, Bootstrap and Alpine.js, and for each page we are including a specific JS file which performs make a call to backend API and then get the details and store it in the local variables here, and we are using these values in our templates. So it is as simple as that. There is nothing complicated. Just if you are not familiar with Alpine.js, you just need to take a look at it and it is easy to understand. And one more thing I wanted to demonstrate is how you can use HTTP client interface for implementing this REST client. Okay, and this is how you can configure your beans, okay, which Spring is going to dynamically generate the implementation. So without security, our front-end application is now working fine, and I think we don't need this in our layout file. If you go to see in the layout file, we have initialized this. We don't need it anymore, but for reference I'll leave it here. If you ever wanted to get any environment variable, you can use this expression to get that value in the JS itself. The last thing that is remained is dockerizing this BookStore web app application. So here I'm going to add in the task file, we also need to build BookStore web app. Okay, so this is all we need here, and in our pipeline configuration, again we are going to add a new file, BookStore WebApp. So I'm going to paste it here and here and here. Okay, and also it is going to be BookStore WebApp. Okay, and one more thing we need to configure is in our apps.yml we also need to configure that. So let me configure store WebApp. And here what configuration properties we have, I guess we only have for now only one. Let me quickly check it. So here this is the one we need to configure and pointing to the API gateway. So here if I let me take it and capitalize this underscore underscore and underscore, and it is going to be API hyphen gateway and it is 8989. Okay, so that is all we need to pass, and here it is 8080. Let us map it to 8080. Okay, so this is fine now, and that's all we need. And finally, let us see whether we can run everything from the Docker itself or not. So I have stopped all the applications from IDE, and let us go to our terminal here, and I'm going to restart everything. So this is supposed to build all the services including BookStore WebApp and then start our application, and we should be able to access the web app also on localhost 8080. Now all the services are started. Let's go ahead and run this, and here we see the response, and we can navigate across products, and then we can add items to cart, and we can place the order here. So now let us go to orders, and here we can see it is delivered. So everything is working fine end to end when running all the services in the Docker Compose itself. So everything is working fine. So that's all for this video, and thanks for watching. And in the next video we are going to start adding OAuth based security for our application.